Welcome back to Choices Driven. So this will be the first of many YouTube episodes that we put out. This episode is going to be about leadership, and I want to talk about one of the most talked about leadership quotes in sports. It comes from legendary Alabama football coach Nick Saban. Now, I idolise Nick Saban. I want to be like Nick Saban, fair to say. So Nick said, mediocre people don't like high achievers, and high achievers don't like mediocre people. Now, at face value, that sounds pretty harsh, right? Nearly sounds arrogant. Some people can even hear it and think he's saying that the successful people are somehow better than everyone else. That's what I thought when I first heard it. But now that I think about it, I don't think that's what he's saying. Today I want to unpack what I believe is one of the most misunderstood leadership lessons in sport. Because this isn't really about talent, guys. It's about standards. It's about culture. It's about choices. And whether you're a rugby player, a parent, a coach, a business owner, or a student, this lesson applies to every part of your life. So as we go through and break this down, please keep this going with an open mind, and we'll go through it. Righto, so the first part I want to break down is understanding the mediocrity. When people hear the word mediocre, they immediately think of ability. Average talent, average intelligence, average athleticism. That's not how I define mediocrity. And it's taken me a while to get to this point of why I define mediocrity this way. But I've coached incredibly talented players who are mediocre. I've coached players with very little natural talent who become exceptional. Mediocrity isn't about your ability. It's about your attitude. It's choosing comfort over growth. It's choosing excuses over accountability. It's taking the shortcuts over the disciplined way because it's going to be easier. You can be the most gifted athlete in the competition and still live a mediocre life because you never maximise what you've been given. I see it happen too many times, particularly amongst the First Nations kids that I see. Likewise, you can be an average athlete. You can become extraordinary because every day you make extraordinary choices. The next part that I think that we should look into is why high performers make others uncomfortable. This is pretty important. Have you ever noticed something? The hardest worker in the gym often gets criticised. The player who arrives first gets called a tryhard. The student who studies gets labelled a nerd. Why? Why do we do this? Why do we try and take down the person trying to better themselves? Because excellence forces people to ask themselves uncomfortable questions. If you train every morning while I sleep in, I have two choices. Either admire your discipline or convince myself you're a problem. It's human nature. High performers don't intentionally make people uncomfortable. It's not what they set out to do. Their standards make people uncomfortable, though. Your discipline highlights someone else's excuses. It widens the gap between you and other people, and people don't like that. So there's a flip side to all of this. Now here's the part that most people miss. Nick Saban didn't only say that mediocre people don't like high performers. I'll say it again. Nick Saban didn't only say that mediocre people don't like high performers. It isn't one-sided. He also said high performers don't like mediocre environments. Think about that. If you're someone who gives everything, someone who prepares properly, someone who sacrifices, eventually become frustrated because you're carrying the people who can't carry themselves. I've seen it a number of times this year alone in Shoot Shield and in Shoot Shield Colts. It's not because you're arrogant, but to you, standards matter. If you've ever been in a team where only 3 people clean up, only 4 people arrive early, there's only 5 of you doing extras. You know exactly what I mean. You guys have been there. You've all seen it. The next thing that I want to look at in this quote is about culture. And that culture is actually contagious, be it good or bad. Every environment has a culture. Culture isn't what's written on the wall. Anyone can write stuff on the wall, guys. That's not culture. That's promotion. Culture is what gets accepted. If laziness is accepted, laziness spreads. If excuses are accepted, excuses spread. If discipline is celebrated, then discipline spreads. People think leaders create culture, but they don't. The leaders are there to protect culture. They are the guardians. They are there to ensure the standards are upheld. And they'll either do that in a positive or a negative way. And they do this every day. They do it in every conversation that they have, every standard that they set or accept, every difficult decision that they have to make as leaders. Because standards are like gravity. The moment you stop holding them up, they fall. Key phrase there, team. Standards are like gravity. The moment you stop holding them up, they fall. So I've got some examples that I'll talk to you about. So I spent years recruiting rugby players now. I've been doing it for about 2 or 3 years. And parents often ask me, what separates the players who make it? Well, look, to be fair, I've identified a lot of players but haven't been successful in recruiting them to where I want to be. But I've got a fair idea around how this works. So what I've come up with is it's consistency. Plain and simple. The kid who keeps turning up. The one who keeps improving. The one who still trains hard after not getting selected. The player who supports his teammates even when they're injured. They don't have the weekend off. They're there to support their team because it's about the team, not them. The one who thanks the volunteers. The one who speaks respectfully to the referees. Those players become leaders. Not because someone gave them a title, because people trust them. Recruiters notice these things. Coaches notice these things. Trust me, teammates definitely notice these things. Character, it's impossible to hide. You will not hide your character. You'll be found out sooner or later. Now, there's a lesson here for parents as well. Parents, the lesson isn't just for athletes. What standards are you modelling? Do your children hear you making excuses? Do they hear you blaming referees? Do they hear you blaming the coaches? Do they hear you blaming the schools? Or do they hear accountability? Children don't become what we tell them. They become what we constantly demonstrate. And your choices as parents in how you shape your future and your characteristics will come over into your children. If we want resilient children, we've got to remodel, or we've got to model resilience. If you want disciplined children, you've got to be disciplined yourself. I myself sometimes have to check when I tell my kids to do or not to do something because I know that I'm probably going to do the same thing they've just done, even though I know it's wrong. And I'm trying to be better like that. Which leads me on to looking in the mirror. The hardest question isn't who are the mediocre people in the club. That's the easiest thing to find. The hardest question that as a coach, a parent, or as a player will ever ask themselves when they're looking in the mirror is, where am I settling for mediocrity? Am I doing enough? Could I prepare better? Could I communicate better? Could I support my teammates more? Could I become more reliable? If we think of those things, then growth will happen. And growth begins the moment we stop looking around and we start looking in the mirror. That person staring back at you. Because the only person that you truly compete with, as I've said in some of my shorts, is yesterday's version of yourself. Now, look, let's go back to Nick Saban's quote. Mediocre people don't like high achievers, and high achievers don't like mediocre people. To me, as I've explained, this isn't looking down on anyone. To me, it's about understanding that standards attract standards. Discipline attracts discipline. Character attracts character. If you surround yourself with people who challenge you to become better, you'll grow. If you surround yourself with people who constantly encourage you to lower your standards, well, guess what, guys? Eventually, you'll lower your standards. Look, guys, ask yourself today, who am I becoming because of the people around me? And just as importantly, who are the people around me becoming because of me? Who am I becoming because of the people around me? And who are the people around me becoming because of me? Because every culture, every team, every family, every friendship, they're all shaped one choice at a time. And that's what choice driven is all about. It's not about perfection, guys. It's not about talent. It's not about being better than someone else. Simply choosing every single day to become a little better than you were yesterday is what it's about. Look, guys, thanks for watching. If this message resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Join us as we continue helping people build their futures, one choice at a time. We'd love some feedback. We'd love some comments. We'll see you next time.